Last time, many of us took a gamble with President Trump, and by us I mean not just the American fans of the sofa, but also us, the political operatives from all over the world who amplified the Trumpian message with all of the risks that entailed. 4 years ago, on November the 7th, one day before the election, I was calling the US election, quote, by far the most interesting and arguably the most important event of the decade, unquote. Well, given the result, I clearly wasn't wrong. Almost everything changed, mostly for the better, with the election of Donald J. Trump to the White House, including for the selfish reasons I gave back then, for which I shilled for now President Trump. Back then, we built an arguably weird alliance to get President Trump, with all sorts of characters that would have never fit into a, let's call it, conventional conservative campaign. And it worked. For all its faults, that coalition got the result. It's not exactly the same coalition now, but we still need one. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, so as I was reviewing what I said back in 2016 when I made a similarly titled video, I was noticing that for the most part things got better than what I predicted as the most likely scenario if Donald Trump wins. Now, I apologize for quoting myself, but I have to. I don't believe Trump can necessarily make America great again, though I would be glad to be proven wrong. But I do believe Trump can prevent America from going wrong again, as it did during the FDR and the Lyndon Johnson era. And not going wrong again is indeed the first and the most important step towards making America great again. From where I'm standing, the worst that can happen under Trump would be for him to do nothing, which in itself would be great. After all, the best president in the 20th century was Calvin Coolidge. Best case scenario, he gets 30% of his policies passed. Most likely scenario, he gets his pick on the Supreme Court, tweaks the immigration system a bit towards the sanity side, and perhaps opens renegotiations on some trade deals. Maybe, though I doubt that. But that would still be fine. I don't think he will turn into a dictator the way Obama did, and most definitely I don't think he'll be worse than Obama. With President Trump, by virtue of him breathing, he will at least make the media great again, because the media would scrutinize every action of the President Trump the way they never did with President Obama or President Bush for that matter. There will be enough checks and balances for that, no doubt about it. The same does not, however, apply if Hillary wins. If she wins, breaking highly important laws with impunity will be called Tuesday. If none of that convinces you to vote for Trump, just think of this. The months and belly aching and butthurt that will endlessly flow from the entirety of the chattering class, the middle class left-wing pricks in the cathedral media, the conservatives, the social justice warriors, and all the right people. Brexit will feel like children's play in comparison. A huge, huge kick in the teeth for all the right people, that in itself would be glorious enough. The entirety of this neo-puritanical class of sanctimonious cucks who pretend to be disgusted that Trump said pussy, these are the people who genuinely deserve a metaphorical and political boot in the teeth and a punch in the throat. As hard as possible and as unambiguous as possible. Alright, so he got 3 Supreme Court picks and closed one big negotiation on trade. Everything else turned out exactly as I said, with one exception: the media. I underestimated the amount of TDS, I really did. I was wrong, but I'm glad I was wrong. I merely assumed bias, malintent, and moral corruption on the part of the media. That is to say, I assumed the media are in it for the money and social engineering. I didn't think many of them are insane as well. So as a result, President Trump did make the media great again, just not the same media. The cathedral media went straight down the tubes, many entities going bankrupt and others ending up openly being owned by wealthy shills, such as Vice ending up owned by Soros Gurgu, CNN sinking to audience levels that would be shameful if CNN were to be run for profit, and many of the previously big shilling operations, such as Al Jazeera America, disappearing altogether. Sure, you may claim that the Chinese cough situation has seen some recovery in audience levels for CNN, which is true, but even with that temporary recovery, they're still way behind in terms of ability to influence when compared to themselves in 2016. And some of that can be directly attributed to the success of the Donald Trump administration. President Trump has broken the taboo in the relationship with the press. He openly mocked the cathedral media with impunity, appointed press secretaries who also mocked the media, and he refused to bow down to media pressure. In the first 2 years, he was basically like President Reagan, but a lot less polite with the fuckers in the media. In the last 2 years, however, he turned the tables completely on the media, and perhaps for the first time, the Democrat media complex found itself on the defensive. I mean, think about it. They milked the Russia story, but then when it all fell, they actually had to pay for it. People don't know that President Trump sued multiple media outlets and won most of the time for defamation. Even as we speak, President Trump has several dozen lawsuits against media outlets. The conservative movement has also started using the legal system a lot more often. People remember the Nick Sandmann case, but look deeper than that. There were more defamation lawsuits initiated and won by conservatives since 2019 than in the previous 10 years combined. Possibly 15 years, I lost count at some point. And then there is the counter-candidate. Kamala Harris, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. If Joe Biden wins, Kamala Harris will be the president. I mean, really, Mr. Biden barely remembers the name of the office he's running for and confuses President Trump with George W. Bush. Or perhaps George H.W. Bush. So it will be Kamala Harris, a militant progressive who will try to get you in jail for homeschooling, just like she did in her own state, will try to excuse drug dealers, just like she did in California, will ramp up identitarian politics, and will try to move closer to a Chinese style of geopolitics. Oh, and she also openly argues for equity, which is a very nice way of saying Marxism-Leninism. Oh, and some of y'all will be in house arrest until you stop coughing, because reasons. So that is what is at stake here. President Trump wasn't perfect, of course. He only partially delivered on the wall. Hillary is still not in prison and hasn't removed that many so-called refugees. But at the same time, he did reduce immigration overall, did scale back regulations to levels even many libertarians thought would be impossible, cut the taxes, and he provided a well-deserved boot in the teeth to the entirety of the green agenda. And I'm not talking here just about the Paris Agreement, but also in terms of cutting subsidies for the green scam internally, rolling back EPA rules, and made concrete steps to grow the domestic energy market to the point that now the United States is exporting energy all the way down here to Europe. And perhaps the most important for a significant number of bipartisan voters, he hasn't started new wars. Now, I personally don't care about that, but don't underestimate just how important this particular fact could be at the ballot box. He also made a lot of decisions that are dear to those of us interested in the culture as well, such as helicoptering the critical race theory from the federal government, removing protections for federal workers so they can be fired more easily, directing the cabinet to change the Title IX and free speech regulations in universities to slowly move the campuses away from the controlled speech model that they usually run on, and some other less visible changes that got many enemies of freedom up in arms. He also can't be blamed for not trying. Even CNN had to shockingly remark that no matter how much they hate the president, Trump really tries and has been trying to deliver on all of his promises. That in itself puts President Trump way outside the statistical norm for Washington. For those reasons alone, and it's enough to say, at least for me, 4 more years. Of course, there are other smaller reasons too, but which matter quite a lot for tinier demographics, which in a tight election tend to matter quite a lot. For instance, Trump's position on the 3 Cs initiative is something which should bring in some voters in and of itself. Let's just say that I know this is the case. While this time around I was less involved publicly in the campaign, let's just say that I was involved in a more substantial way and have been since 2018 when I visited Trump's America and decided that I'd bloody keep it that way. It's quite unfortunate that there is a disputed election season here as well, because I really wanted to come over there for the election, but it's okay. There's always the next election too. So yeah, keep calm and vote Trump. Regardless of the result, there will be politics after this season as well, just like there was politics after Obama's re-election in 2012. Nothing is permanent in politics and nothing is inevitable. The media keep trying to tell you that Biden's win is inevitable. It's not. I'm publishing this a bit before the opening of the first polling station, but this time around a lot of votes have been cast already, more than in 2016, but still not that many. The decisive battle is still today. No matter what the media says and no matter which state you're in, go out and vote for the Donald. In 2016, the determination of the voters flipped Michigan when nobody expected. So who says we can't do that again? How about flipping Illinois? Why not? Or perhaps New York? I mean, why not? Cuomo has been sucking quite a lot this year. It would be a glorious middle finger, don't you think? Quite frankly, unlike 2016, I don't think there are states where it's not worth bothering. Sure, California looks impossible to turn red, just like South Dakota looks unlikely to go blue. But even if you're in a solid state, one way or the other, you should still go out and vote. And while you're there, tick the R down the ticket too. Surely, some blue seats in the House can be flipped, like it happened earlier this year with Mike Garcia, a former Navy fighter pilot who won a House seat in a special election in California, something which hasn't happened in over 20 years for a Republican in California to flip a seat. Usually when the seat went blue, it stayed blue for decades. Well, not anymore. Also keep in mind that Biden's likability is not higher than Hillary's, but fewer people despise him when compared to Hillary. That's why you have to go out and vote. Even if you're from an area it may seem that Trump is already the winner in. It ain't over until the fat lady sings, as the saying goes. So yeah, time's up. Vote Trump. I'll see you all soon.